Hello again. Welcome again to my channel. My name is Goldie, and here I speak about my golden goodies I had in my life, in my knowledge, in my experiences. And always remember, miracles happen every day, also for me, also for you. Why not, right? As I promised last time in the last video, where I told you how I first stumbled over anything Neville Goddard taught, the latter thing, I will start to talk today about this marvelous, wonderful Barbados experience he had. That was basically the beginning of his journey, Neville Goddard's journey back then. And it was in his first experience with this law of assumption, how he called it, baptized it more or less. It was also, his first experience was also kind of my first experience through hearing it from him. And I almost couldn't believe all that. Therefore, I researched very much. So today I will make a little series out of Barbados because it's so crucial and it explains very well this law of assumption he has called his experience or his discovery, this law of assumption, and also this technique or those techniques he used back then. Later he called it Zat's state akin to sleep. So today I will make an outline. I tell the story in itself, how it developed for Neville back then. In the next little video, I will show you what he wrote in his book about his Barbados experience, how he described it there. And the third little video will be built around my research of it, because as I told in the latter video already, I researched that because I hardly couldn't believe it, that this functions. And as I already told, I'm a really well-educated Bible, I could almost say expert. So it linked to very many sayings that I find back in the Bible, also in the Old Testament, but very much in the New Testament. Sayings and verses from Yeshua himself, the Master Manifester, The Master Manifester said this too. And this is something I wanted to take seriously, And these two things, those linked together for me, and therefore I didn't let loose. I really grabbed in that like a bulldog, and I put my teeth into that matter to find out what it's really about and how this works. So the third video then will be about my research. And the fourth one, this is kind of my thing, I always find things nobody ever found. Also in the Bible, I know things nobody ever knew, and it's not a lie. Those are real pearls, but you only find those things if you really dig down. Lazy people, godless people, or who think that their translation in English or German or Spanish of the Bible is the word of God. I can't even talk to such people because it's not true. The real spirit you only find in the original texts, because many translations never, it's translated, like you go over a big river, you have to pass it. But other than in a ferry or in a boat, when you translate something, you lose always baggage, important pieces, you need back then on the other side, on the other bank, so to speak, to put the whole thing together again. It's not possible. It's not possible. So let's dive into the story, the structure of the story. This Barbados story, like Neville tells it in a video, if I find it again, it's a video about this story. He tells himself with his own real voice, not the IE stuff they have today, the artificial intelligence. They redo his voice and put their own stuff with his voice on the channels. I hate this. It really, it's for me, it's betrayal. But anyway, and I don't want to hear those. I want to hear Neville himself, And there's a video, it's around 16 minutes, where he tells himself this story, his experience with Barbados. And I don't know how often I listened to this video. It's only a stand picture, so it's like a podcast. You only can hear, you don't see anything. But this, I don't know how often I listen to that. And I try to find out why this could happen, or if it happened really because of this, what Neville did. So, okay, the story in itself, it took place in 1933. 33, it's almost 100 years old, this story. And back then, Neville told he was a dancer, somewhere on the theater, maybe even on Broadway. And, 33, this was shortly after the big crash in 1929, Entire America was down. People were poor, they had nothing to eat, especially in the cities, not in the rural areas, but in the cities, and he lived in New York. And back then he knew a teacher, somehow he did never even tell where he knew him from. Maybe he was in his seminars, I don't know. He never tells where he knew this guy from. He just states he was kind of a friend of him. And his name was Abdullah. I think he says he was an Ethiopian Jew. And he was kind of in the esoterics, somehow even in the Kabbalah. And he knew a lot of things, he said. And he was a very self-secure guy. And he taught people about these laws of the mind, of the soul, And he described, he someday told this Abdullah, that he wanted to go to Barbados. Barbados is his home island, and there he grew up. And he said he was not there since he came to New York 12, 13 years. And he never was never kind of homesick or never wanted to go there. But it was in the fall of 1933 where this happened. But this time he said, Abdullah, I have such an urge, lust to go there. I have the feeling I must be there. Yeah, I want to go back. I'm homesick and everything. And I have no money, he said. I haven't had a job in months and hardly could pay his rent, whatever. And he said, I have no money to go there. And this ship, the last ship will go in December, beginning of December. And I don't see how how I could get the money until then. And then Abdullah said, you're in Barbados. And I was like, I'm in Barbados? What do you mean? That you are in Barbados. If you want to be there, you are in Barbados. You must imagine that you are in Barbados already now. And here's what you should do, Abdullah said then. Every night when you are in bed, before you really fall down into sleep, in the theta states, whatever, you imagine that you are now laying in the bed in Barbados and you see New York from Barbados. You imagine you be in your house or in the house of your mother, wherever you will be when you are in Barbados, and you see New York from there. And Neville couldn't believe it. And Abdullah said, you're in Barbados now. Okay, Neville did that. When, he tried, when he walked through the streets of New York, he tried to imagine this is now Barbados. And he is telling that so nicely, because he said, in Barbados, every house is so tiny. It has maximum 2 or 3 levels. And in New York, it's 20 levels. But he tried to imagine during the day that he's now walking through the little streets, in Barbados, and those are the little houses. And especially in the evening, he imagined laying in bed in his mother's house, and he kind of imagined New York far in the north, that he's now really in Barbados. And he imagined that. And then days went by, nothing happened. And then he came back to Abdullah and said, Abdullah, I'm still here. And I do all this, he said, but if I don't get the ticket for the ship in beginning December, I don't make it there. And Abdullah said, and this was for me so, this is so crashing. And Abdullah only said, who is talking about going to Barbados? You're in Barbados. That's it. And then he left the room. It was in his apartment, in Abdullah's apartment, and slammed the door. And Neville stood there and couldn't understand the world, you know, because he, like hearing that, I thought, what this? Yeah. So he left, and then obviously he says 2 or 3 times he tried to talk to Abdullah about Barbados, because he always did that and imagined every night laying in bed, he imagined being now in the bed in his mother's house and so on, and sees New York from Barbados in the north and so on. And therefore I have my tropical flowers here to give you a little Barbados feeling, and I have now this leather sweater in this color, so little tropical feeling. But I can understand him. And then he says he tried 2 or 3 times again to talk to Abdullah about it. And he always says, kind of was nasty or angry even when Neville tried to talk about how he could go to Barbados. He always said, you are in Barbados. Who is talking about going to Barbados? So Neville kept doing it and almost didn't dare anymore to talk to Abdullah about it. So he did the things he told him. And then one day, it was already very sharp, beginning December, and Neville already was in a state where he kind of thought, I do everything, maybe it won't happen. I don't know, because it's already, if I don't get the ship, I think it was on the 6th, and there were not many ships going there, only one ship, I think, every 2 months or so. And if he didn't get the last ship in this year, it's over. He can swim there, he can fly there. So, yeah. And then one day he got a letter, beginning December, so very sharp, near to the actual date. A letter from his brother, who was still living in Barbados, with an invitation to come to Barbados to celebrate Christmas with all of the family, because never all of the family Neville had many sisters and brothers, and never ever they had a Christmas where everyone was together, because some of his siblings were very young when he left already. So never ever they had a total family Christmas together. And his brother, obviously a pretty successful businessman, he said, here's a check, $50 for your expenses, not for the ship fee. The ship fee is paid. Everything is paid, inclusively the tips on the ship, and you can just go to the line, to the shipping line, and say that it's paid, and they have it on their list, and it's everything fine. And Neville was so out of his mind, so happy, so lucky, and he immediately ran down to the harbor and contacted the ship already lying there. And they found it on the list that everything okay, Mr. Goddard. It's only one thing. There's a first class booked for you, but we don't have place for first class. So until the first stop of the ship journey travel, he would have to go storage, so third class. And then he ran. He said, yeah, I take it. I take everything. He was so happy. And then he ran back to Abdullah and he said, it functioned. I only have to go storage third class until the first stop on the journey. And then Abdullah said something also for me. When I heard that the first time or the second, I couldn't believe it that Abdullah reacted like this. And then Abdullah said, who is talking about going to Barbados? You are in Barbados and you went first class. Again, this angry and nasty. And Neville was so shocked that he almost didn't feel joy for Neville, because he again said, I'm going to Barbados. You know, it's so, this really made, I can imagine how Neville must have felt. Probably like the last moron, like the last idiot, you know, like I would have felt too, because this is not our way of thinking, right? That when we want something, we exclude everything what's around us and just are in that place we want already. I mean, who is thinking like this? Nobody, right? And I can understand Neville, because he said he saw the deadline of this last him leaving and nothing happened, you know. Oh. There he was with the ladder thing. You know, the old man told me, please listen to my last video. With the ladder thing, nobody is attached to climbing a ladder. So this makes it happen for many people. You know, when you have no money, yeah, you are in a phase of total economical rush down. Nobody has jobs to forgive. Nobody has. You have no job. You have no money. You don't see anything. How you could earn the money to go there? You can do. He did only one thing. He imagined it every evening and tried to hold it up during the day, imagining walking the streets of Barbados. Made very difficult by the huge, totally different streets and buildings of New York. If you are in this economical, awful situation, and then you can't even talk to Abdullah, to your teacher, about it, because he not only slams the door, but by slamming the door, or by yelling or be angry with Neville in that situation. I mean, imagine, he has no money, he is weak, and when you have such a situation, you feel it in the heart, you feel it in the stomach, you feel weak, you feel in stress all the time. And then you have such a wish, such an urge, and the only thing you can do is imagining. I mean, the only thing that doesn't cost anything. I can understand Neville that he wanted to talk about it. And always. Now, what I wanted to say, by slamming the door, by being angry at Neville in this weak state, he kind of gave him a slap in the face. Like maybe if you're angry with your teenager child and leave me alone, you are there. And I think Neville must have felt like the last totally idiotic moron ever living, you know. And yeah, so he went. He went to Barbados. On time. On time. And I can understand this totally. How Neville must have felt. I have one or two situations now also with deadlines. And I imagine. And I do my state akin to sleep. I do my affirmations. And I always say to myself, I play Abdullah for myself, you know. You are there. You have that. Because it's something pretty big. And I want it so much. I have this urge. I'm exactly in the place Neville was almost 100 years ago. And I want this so much. And it's so big. Two things. Basically 3 things. I don't even know how to affirm and to imagine, because I am like in a row, you know, imagine in a row or whatever. So, yeah, I understand him. And I always slap myself, and then I play Abdullah for myself and say, you are there. You have this. No matter how big it is, you are there. Who is talking about going there? Who is talking about having that? You have it, and you have it both. Yeah. So, we'll see, right? We are there where our wish is. We are there where our heart is, right? Yeah, so this was longer than I thought it would be. In my next video, I will talk about what I found out around this story. No? It's pretty interesting. And until then, let's live where our hearts are. Oh, right? I wish you luck until my next video. Bye.